particle emissions end here.
So this must be the place.
Turtle Prime. I want to go home!
Ain't exactly Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, is it?
Like, what kind of world is this?
Grim, gritty, my kind of place.
Figures.
Huh, I'm thinking of retiring here.
We'll all be retiring here permanently if we don't find the Shredder and stop him. Leo, I think someone just found us. Source dimension. Source turtles.
What is this? 8 wannabes?
On our turf?
Trying to steal our act?
I strike 2 on my way down. Donatello takes out a 3rd with his staff. Already the pudgy ones are starting to panic. Raph loves this stuff. He's not alone.
Why is he narrating? Is he crazy?
Hardcore crazy. I love these guys!
Stop! We're trying to save you from the Shredder!
The Shredder? What do you know of the Shredder?
We've sworn to terminate the Shredder to avenge Master Yoshi.
Terminate with extreme prejudice.
It's not your Shredder you need to worry about. Well, not right now. It's complicated. It's our Shredder. He's come here to tear down your world.
And he's a grade A meanie.
It's a long story. But it all started when our brother's here from another dimension source of all Ninja Turtle life. So if our Shredder destroys Turtle Prime, he'll end up wiping out all life everywhere.
So you're supposed to be us from other worlds. I don't see it.
What's with the multicolored headbands?
Sellouts. Well, check out the initialized belt buckles on these yahoos.
Hey!
How lame can a turtle get? Am I right? Hey! Ow! Jeez, what a hard case. What?
Nothing.
All right, let's go stop your Shredder. You say he's using a technodrome?
Yep, but don't worry. We've created a sophisticated device that'll be able to track the Technodrome no matter where.
Is that it?
Yep, that'd be it.
It's been doing that all night.
Welcome to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. I'm your host, Perry Constantine, and today I am welcoming a new guest, and that is Smash Trivia John. John, how you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Good. So before we get started on today's episode, we will be talking about Turtles Forever. I see you came prepared. This is audio only, but for those of you who are listening, John is wearing a Ninja Turtles t-shirt. And this is it's kind of funny. The timing kind of worked out nicely because we had recently covered both the 2007 TMNT CGI animated film and the most recent Mutant Mayhem film a few episodes back. But before we get started on Turtles Forever, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself?
I'm Smash Trivia John. I am the host of the Smash Trivia Presents the Gamma Analysis podcast. It's a podcast where I review a whole bunch of geeky films with an emphasis on the character of the Hulk. Hulk, he's my favorite character. And I also as well I'll do random little short videos on both TikTok and YouTube. You can find all of that by just searching for Smash Trivia, and I'll be the one with the green head in the profile picture.
Okay, cool. This is also kind of nice timing because it just happens to turn out that my kids have started to get interested in the Hulk as a character.
Cool.
So Yes. So my daughter just this morning actually she was asking to watch the Hulk on TV, so I put on the Hulk and the Agents of Smash cartoon for her for a little bit.
Oh, nice, nice. I love that Hawk show.
I never watched it. It obviously not my kind of I'm obviously not the target audience that was, but they seem to well they got interested in Hulk because he appeared on Spidey and His Amazing Friends, and so they got kind of interested in that, and they wanted to see more Hulk stuff. So at first I tried showing them some clips from the movies, but my son got scared of the Incredible Hulk, the Ed Norton version.
Not surprising. I think that they went to a little bit too much monster with that version of him.
At least in that, yeah. At least as far as my son is concerned.
Like I personally like a much more soft Hulk that not odd like super ripped veiny guy. And so I can definitely understand where it's coming from.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. The Norton one was my favorite of the Hulk designs, although I definitely see the point. Like there's something to be said about the softer version too. Both have their place. I thought it also worked for the tone of that movie too, since it was very much kind of like a raging type Hulk and out of control. Whereas when he came in the Avengers and later on, he's got a little bit more control over him, so it fit a little bit better for that what they were doing there. But anyway, I digress. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about how you got into superheroes?
Well, I basically just I've been watching superhero stuff ever since I was a kid, and I didn't really get into comics until like probably like 5 years ago or something. I never really read any of those as a kid, and other than I did I remember once and it was very hard read, but as a kid. But I after watching the Planet Hulk animated film, I remember getting from the library the World War Hulk comic, and I was and it was very hard read as a little kid.
Okay, wow, you're blowing my mind here. So you said you read World War Hulk as a little kid?
Yes.
Oh well, I'm old. I'm pretty sure I was already in university when that thing came out. All right. Well, thank you for that.
So when I was a kid, I watched a lot of superhero stuff, of like the Spider-Man movies, the X-Men movies, Fantastic Four, and like then because there were a lot more of those at the time. I watched a lot more DC films, like the classic Superman movies, and then also just any random animated superhero cartoon, and I'd be watching those as well.
Okay, very cool. But you said you didn't get into the comics until a few years ago. So, what finally got you to make that jump from the movies and TV shows into the comics?
I think mainly, it was mainly just as I was. I remember I was at the mall. And I had to kill some time, so I just went into Barnes and Noble and just picked up. I think it was. I think my first one was a Deadpool comic, and I just sat in a corner and started reading it.
Okay, very cool. And then that got you into, it's always that first thing, and then once you get hooked, it's like drugs. Once you get hooked on the first one, it just keeps on going. You got to get more of the supply. So what are you interested in lately? Anything that's kind of grabbing your attention these days? Doesn't have to be superhero related, but what's kind of scratching your itches these days?
These days, I've been watching a lot of horror movies. And I've also been binging both the FX show Baskets and also Bob Oz Burgers.
Okay, cool. On my part, so the day we're recording this, it is the day of the premiere of Daredevil Born Again. It's supposed to be coming out tonight. I think for me, it might be coming out tomorrow. I'm not sure exactly how the schedule works out, but I am very excited for that. And in preparation, I have been rewatching the first three seasons. I finished season one a few nights ago, and I started season. I'm like halfway into season two, so I'm not going to get to the all. I'm obviously not going to finish it all before the premiere, but I've been kind of like binging that to get to get prepared for the show again, and also dipping into some of the recent Daredevil comics on Marvel Unlimited. I finally I finished up the Zardsky run, and now I'm checking out the Saladin run, and really enjoying that. And that's been my thing right now these days.
Are you watching those O's again, or are you watching those old the original Daredevil show for the first time right now?
Oh no, it's definitely again. Yeah, I was binging that like right from day one when they first came. I was because when they came out on Netflix, I was staying up all night waiting for the time zone difference to drop. So when they finally came out.
Yeah, I was the reason I was asking is because I was going to say if you were watching it for the first time, I was like, after you finish in season 2, definitely watch the Defenders before you go into season 3, because it'll not make any sense if you don't.
Yeah, there's a definite lead in there. Yeah, I'm not I watched the Defenders at the time. I'm not the keenest to jump back into that. But yeah, going back to Daredevil has been a fun experience. I've watched the first 2 seasons at least twice through before. I haven't seen season 3 since the first time it aired, though. So once I get back to season 3 again, this will be my first time watching it since it first came out. So I'm looking forward to checking that out again. Anyway, today, like I mentioned at the top of the show, we are discussing Turtles Forever. This was a 2009 animated film, and it was both. It was a few different things. Like it was a celebration of the anniversary of the original series, and it showed the then modern Turtles from the 2003 animated series crossing over with the Turtles from the 1987 series, and dealing with the implications of that with the 87 Shredder, bringing back the Utrom Shredder from the 2003 series, and it also served as kind of a finale for that 2003 series, because I believe this was the last thing from that series. So this kind of was the way to like kind of close the book on that series as well, before they then moved on to the 2012 series that came out a few years after that. But before we dive too much into the movie, what is your experience with the Turtles?
I grew up watching the 2003 show. And then also like the live action movies is from the 90s I remember I watched this when it came out, and I was just enthralled with it as a kid, and seeing these characters cross over with their earlier versions, and honestly, still as an adult, going back to it, I was very happy watching it.
Yeah, it's a fun movie, and I enjoyed it. I saw it back when it came out, I think, or a few years after it came out, and really dug it when I first saw it. I think this might be the third time I've seen it. What kind of surprised me, though, is I guess I'd never really looked at any of the discourse on it, but apparently this one got some mixed reviews from fans and from critics, which kind of surprised me because I thought it was great all around. So you grew up watching the 2003 series. Did you ever watch the 87 series then?
No, I did not. And that was something I was going to ask you about is do they portray them accurately in this? If you did watch the I don't know if you watched the 87 series or not, but I was just wondering.
I was born in 83, so I was the exact right age for the 87 series, and Turtle Mania, that was the era of like the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, that was Turtle Mania era, and that hit me hard as a little kid. Like I was, so I would have been 87, I would have been 4 years old, and I think, 4 or 5 years old is when I started watching the show, and yeah, I just became hooked, like right from the starts. Like from like kindergarten up through at least second grade, my life was pretty much dominated by the Turtles. And like I had everything. I had the toys, I had the play sets, the bed sheets, the pajamas, the clothes, the Turtles underwear, all the little tying in stuff, like the coming out of their. Do you know about the coming out of their shells tour? Have you ever heard of this?
I think I've heard of that. I don't think I've seen it though.
It's fucking wild. It was this weird thing they did back in the early 90s where it was like it was in the wake of the Turtle Mania from the movie. So they did this like kind of like it was like the Turtles becoming a band type of thing and they're dressing up in like they had guys dressing up in these big rubber suits going and like doing like concerts and stuff, and it was called like this coming out of their shells tour. And it was, you could probably find it on YouTube. It's god awful. It's terrible. It's like probably like the Star Wars holiday special for the Turtles, but as a kid I loved it. I didn't know any better back then, but it was, looking back at it now, it was really bad.
Which I think they actually so, and this is something I only recently found out about, but I think it was the actors who from that. There was apparently a short or direct-to-video Turtles Christmas musical special that came out in the 90s.
I don't think it was if I'm remembering correctly, the coming out of their shells was the musical special, but it was not Christmas themed. I don't remember any Christmas stuff with that. I don't know if there was something. I don't know if there was another thing about that, but the concert thing was the coming out of their shells tour, and that was really bad. Yeah, but it was a direct-to-video thing. I think it was like a Pizza Hut exclusive or something like that.
So what I'm thinking of is this thing called "We Wish You a Turtle Christmas," and it has a 2.3 out of 10 on IMDb.
Oh no, I never saw that. Then that's something. I guess that's something I missed.
I only saw, so I have not watched it, but I found out about that as I was looking for Christmas films to review on my podcast last year. I was like, there's a Turtles Christmas special, and it's live action and a musical. That is wild.
Yeah. It looks like they did a few different. Yeah, I'm looking now on the Turtlepedia. They have a bunch of different direct-to-video stuff. I think there's one called Operation Blue Line, Wish You a Turtle Christmas. And I have never heard of these other two, like or Turtle Tunes. There's another one too. I don't know. I never heard of that one. But yeah, coming out of their shells tour, that was the one I had, which was really. Oh, I guess Blue Line was a promotional video for Southern California Rapid Transportation to let kids know about different transportation methods. Turtle Tunes looks like. Yeah, it was a live action musical special again, and then We Wish You a Turtle Christmas. Yeah, I never saw any of these other ones, but it was a wild time back then to be a Turtles fan. They were like, everywhere, literally everywhere.
Like, even though I know these things are probably so bad, the idea of the Ninja Turtles singing just intrigues me so much.
Well, yeah, I mean that was the thing. Like I as a kid, I ate that shit up. Like it completely appealed to me. They got me at the right age for all that stuff that now I look back and I'm like, oh, this was really bad. But yeah, so I got in through the 87 show, and then I loved the first two movies, and and even that first movie, the 1990-91 live action film. That's an incredible comic book movie. It still holds up to this day. Like, I mean, there's some things like the whole thing about Danny and the kids being Foot Clan ninjas and stuff like that. That doesn't hold up as well. And that definitely felt like the studio was kind of reaching in and trying to like push things a certain direction and lighten things up. But other than that, it is very faithful to the comics and the source material. And then, Secret of the Ooze hasn't aged as well. The best thing about that was I like the new actor they got for Donatello in that, the voice actor. And then by the time we got to 3, I was kind of checked out. And then after 3, we got the Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation TV show. And that was kind of the point where I'm like, I think I'm over the Turtles. I think I'm at this point now where it's not for me anymore. But then the 2003 series came out and I started watching. I'm like, oh, wow, this is really good. And since then, I've gone back and I've ended up reading the original Mirage comics and the more recent IDW series, which is excellent. I was saying on our last Turtles episode that I think the IDW stuff is probably the best the Turtles have ever been in any medium. And then, you know, we've got these new movies, Michael Bay ones. We haven't covered those yet, and I'm not in any rush to do that. But of the adaptations we got, I think, yeah, as far as the animated stuff goes, I think the 2003 series is definitely my favorite of the bunch, although I have started dipping into the 2012 series, and that's also really good. But the 2003 series was very faithful to comics, and yeah, going back and looking at one of the criticisms that a lot of fans had about Turtles Forever is the fact that there were a lot of jokes at the expense of the 87 series. But you go back and you watch that 87 series, it is very goofy. It is very, maybe they might have overplayed it just a tad, but not by much. It was still a really goofy, campy series. Like, I've recently been putting it on for my kids and having it on like in the background and stuff like that. And yeah, it's goofy. It really is.
That's why I was wondering. I'm like, did they portray them actually like how they were in the '87 series? Which I think if that is how they were, that's really cool. Though I could definitely understand people being annoyed, even though it still was being portrayed about the same, and just because they don't want the thing that they were that they grew up with getting and goofed on.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, but there's a lot of, I think the people who complain about that stuff are really kind of looking back at this show through rose-colored glasses, because I advise anyone who does think that way, go back, watch the 87 series, and I mean, just like, put aside your childhood nostalgia and just try and sit and watch it as its own thing with a fresh approach to it, and you will see that it is very goofy. It is like the Shredders and Krang are extremely over the top. The Turtles, their personalities are mostly the same, and they all basically have like these very kind of like goofy-ish personalities. April is very much like just a consistent damsel in distress throughout the entire series in that. So, and it is very strange still that she is wearing a yellow jumpsuit when she's supposed to be a TV news reporter. Like, I love that scene when Don says to her, he's like, "Oh, do you work at a car wash in this universe?"
Which I think it's funny. He comments on that, but then we see the April from their universe later also wearing a yellow jumpsuit.
Yeah, but in her defense, like, she's not a TV news reporter though. So. Although there is some stuff where they're poking fun at stuff, and it is like, I think that's one of the reasons why they had the Turtle Prime there, to kind of like poke fun at the 2003 series as well. Like the scene where they're making fun of all the turtles for having multicolored headbands, because that was something that wasn't in the original comics. You go back to the original comics. Well, first off, the comics themselves were in black and white, but if you look at the covers, they were all wearing red bandanas. They all had the same color. When you and the fact that, you know, they're not as violent. Like the original series was very violent. It was, in fact, there's that one scene when the Prime Raph is making fun of the 2003 Raph, and he calls him a sellout, which was a common criticism that a lot of fans of the Mirage comics had of the 87 series, because they're like, oh my God, there was a huge backlash. In fact, even in the pages of the letters pages of the comics at the time, Eastman and Laird had to address the fact that so many fans were very angry about the 87 series.
To be honest, I kind of feel like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a franchise where it's kind of silly to me to be complaining about them not being super serious. It's like, one, they're turtles, and but also they're literally a parody. You're a parody is meant to be funny. It's I say them being a parody as they were literally made as a parody of Daredevil.
Yeah, of Daredevil. Also, there's some New Mutant stuff in there. Yeah, it was very much tongue in cheek. And it was very much kind of mimicking a lot of the conventions at the time, like this whole the narration part that they're doing in the that comes straight out of the Mirage comics. Like even some of the lines are quoted verbatim from Leo's narration in that first issue. Shredder is eliminated right away, just like he was in that first issue. He gets taken out right in that first issue. And yeah, I think there are definitely people who take this franchise a little bit too serious. Like I've seen both extremes of the fandom. I've seen the people who take it way too seriously, and I've seen people who don't take it seriously at all. And there's a middle ground that exists with the Turtles that you have to kind of hit. And I think the 2003 series, I think it did a really good job of striking that balance between the two extremes, just like the 91, the first live action film did. And also, from what I've seen so far, the 2012 series did. Like all of those, they really hit the right balance of, and the IDW series too. It also hits that right balance of it. Because yeah, it is, I think part of it is just the fact that you look at those early issues, like this was very early in Laird and Eastman's careers. Like they weren't seasoned comic book creators back then. They were just kind of like goofing off. They're trying to find something to work together. And one of them just came up with this drawing of a turtle with ninja weapons, and they just kept going back and forth. And then they're just having fun. They're just basically playing jazz with the whole thing. And it blew up beyond anyone's expectations, where that first issue, they printed that first issue with the tax return. That was how they did it, because they had no intention of doing more than that, but it was a very limited run, and it just became this huge hit. And then it had multiple printings after that. And then they were like, okay, well, let's keep going. But it was obviously something they weren't taking overly seriously at the time, but that doesn't always come through in the way it was written. It's kind of like Starship Troopers. You ever seen the Starship Troopers movie?
I have not. I've heard of it, but I have not seen it.
Okay, so it's a great movie, and it's a total satire of fascist ideology and kind of like, hyper masculine culture and all that. But it's one of those things. Fight Club 2 has the same problem where a lot of people just don't get the joke. And I think that was the case with the original Turtles comic too. I think there were a lot of people who didn't get the joke, and they took it a lot more seriously than it was intended to be. And I think that's why you have people who were saying that the 87 series was a sellout and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think there are definitely people. There is a certain amount of ridiculousness that is baked into the Turtles concept, and you just have to kind of go with that.
Now, with me, am I crazy at saying, since as I mentioned, it's a parody of Daredevil? Wasn't literally in the original comics, their origin was literally very much established to be that the exact same accident that gave Daredevil his powers was what gave them their powers?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. The canister, Eastman and Laird were huge fans of the Frank Miller Daredevil comics at the time. So the canister that struck Matt and gave him his powers, that canister then rolled into the sewer, and that, transformed Splinter and the Turtles into their mutated form. So yeah, very much that was the intention. And obviously the Foot Clan was a parody of the Hand. So all that kind of stuff.
And I think actually in this movie there is a reference at the very end, and that I think is particularly trying to point about how they were how it's supposed to be within the Marvel universe, even though it wasn't made by Marvel, and that being Bleecker Street, being a place to get pizza from. The original Turtles want to get pizza from.
Yeah, but I think Bleecker Street is a real street in New York, though.
Oh,
I mean, but
okay.
it is
I've
also.
never been to. I haven't been to New York City since I was a very young kid, and I did not remember a street name. So yeah, I'm not surprised.
Apparently, yeah. There's a very famous Bleecker Street pizza restaurant, I guess. Like I'm not from New York
okay.
either, but yeah, Bleecker Street. It was it's a street in New
Okay.
York that is also, I think, where Doctor Strange is.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
what I was thinking of with the reference. It was Doctor Strange's Sanctum Sanctorum.
No, well, because back in the day, like when Stan Lee was really started off on Marvel, back when he was starting to expand the Marvel universe in the 60s, he wanted to connect it to the real world as much as possible. So a lot of the locations in the Marvel universe, especially in those early issues, they are specific locations in New York City because he was a native New Yorker. So those addresses are real in a lot of places.
Makes sense.
Okay, so let's dive into this. What were some of the things that kind of jumped out at you rewatching this for today?
And two particular things that I really liked about it is one, they really explored the differences between these universes, which I really like that. It makes it feel like them being different universes really a really important thing in a way that I don't think they do nearly as much with a lot of the multiverse films that come out today. I think they did that really well, and then also I like this concept that if the turtles from the original comic universe get hurt, everybody else feels it. I think that's a really fun concept.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. I'm not sure how that really shakes out in terms of like the overall. It works for this movie in terms of like the overall continuity of stuff, because you've had turtles who have died in the comics before and nothing happened to them in the. I mean, I guess maybe you could look at that as times when the series were canceled or whatever. But
I feel like honestly, if he wanted to take the turtles out of existence in every universe, it should killing the turtles from the original universe shouldn't do that. What would make sense, and if they're already the Ninja Turtles, then that means that that the decision that created another universe already happened. So if anything, if he wants to erase these other universes, he should not only be going to the original universe, but when the original universe had its origin story, and stop the ooze from being an accident.
Well, my understanding is that it wasn't that he was just going there to kill the turtles, that he was going to destroy that entire universe completely. So now how he was going to do that with the Technodrome, I mean, was a little bit less clear. But my understanding is that once you destroy that Turtles Prime universe, then it would kind of have this, domino effect across the multiverse and destroy all the other ones from there. Now, some behind the scenes stuff for this as well that I wanted to comment on very quickly. So none of the original voice actors from the 87 series came back. And this is one of the things that was, I think was, to be honest, just to be frank, bullshit, because the original actors, they were all LA Union actors in California, and 4Kids, which is the network that was doing the show at the time, they were in New York City, and 4Kids was unable to, and 4Kids was not a union thing, so they did not work with union actors.
Oh, okay.
And so I think that's a bit of bullshit, personally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing was the music library. So the music that they use for the 87 stuff it's a little bit different, and the reason why is because Lionsgate at the time, I'm not sure if they still do. I think Nickelodeon owns everything outright now. But at the time, Lionsgate had the rights to the 87 the Fred Wolf cartoon music library, which included the Turtle stuff. So then they had an in-house composer at 4Kids create a score that was similar to the 87 one, but still different enough where they avoided any sort of copyright infringement.
Makes sense.
So yeah, that, I mean, I think I'm very much pro-union, so that part of it, was really kind of annoying.
I'm definitely very pro-union as well.
Yeah, and also, and some of the most of the voice actors for the Turtles and Shredder and Krang, most of the 87 actors, the ones for the 87 characters, they do a pretty good job of matching the tone. The one exception is Leonardo. Like, Dan Green did the voice for Leonardo, and he just does not really sound anything like the actor who did the original one, who I'm just double checking on his name too. So he was voiced by Cam Clark in the original, and Cam Clark and Dan Green, very different vocal styles. So every time 87 Leo spoke, it really kind of took me out of the movie because it just did not match what I remember from that character.
Makes sense.
But how about you? Any other any things that really else kind of jumped out at you that you really wanted to talk about here?
I'm with the with that they had with the had saying with the 87 series. I'm wondering, was this actually something that was a part of the 87 series that the Ninja Turtles were just known by everybody and they could just go out on the streets?
So that was a bit of a. It depends. Like I thought about that too, because early on in the series, they were still, whenever they went out in the streets, they would wear disguises. Like they would wear like the hats and trench coats. They even had like rubber masks at some point too. But I think it was from the third season they became known and beloved by the public. So, but then it kind of like went back and forth. So things had changed throughout the course of the series. Like the 87 series lasted for a good while. So, things had changed a little bit here and there. So yeah, I guess it depends on where in the 87 series they're pulling the Turtles from. Like if they're pulling them from the first three seasons, then it would no, from the first three seasons it doesn't make sense. But if they're pulling them from after the third season finale, it actually does fit because they were well known. Although the idea that the Turtles would have zero concerns, like they would never even think that maybe in this reality that came off as a little bit weird, because the Turtles did have those concerns in the original one, at least in the early seasons.
It was interesting to me. It sounded like they didn't see the general public as being people who would fear them, but they don't like cops. Because they tried when they believed the cop was outside, they went out the back.
Yeah, again, that was like the Boys in Blue was something they always said in the 87 series. So I think that was more of a callback to the 87 series. Although, I guess it was. I can't remember the later seasons as well as I can the earlier seasons. Just because I watched the earlier seasons a lot more frequently. But the later seasons, after they became known to the public, I don't know if they still had I don't think they would have had an antagonistic relationship with the police. So yeah, that is kind of a disconnect between the two.
Yeah, it's interesting. It reminds me a lot of like how the general public loves Spider-Man, but the police do not.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not sure how that really shakes out. Again, I can't recall the later seasons when they were known to the public, so I'd have to double check on that. But first, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come right back. Ever have a situation where you want to watch something on Netflix, but it's only available in another country? Or are you nervous about using public Wi-Fi networks without any protection? Then what you need is a VPN, or virtual private network. A VPN is essentially your own superhero mask that protects your device's secret identity from prying eyes. In these uncertain times, protecting yourself on the internet is more important than ever to prevent your data from being sold to the highest bidder. But free VPNs don't offer the security they promise, so a subscription VPN is best. I've been a loyal user of ExpressVPN for years. It's got fast speed, great support, and is very easy to use. Just install ExpressVPN on your device or Wi-Fi router, click a button, and you've got instant protection. You can also select which country you want to browse from, which gets around geo-blocking on streaming services like Netflix and Disney+. If you'd like to try out ExpressVPN, you can get a free trial by clicking the link in the show notes. So what are you waiting for? Start protecting yourself today. Since you're listening to this show, I already know you love watching superhero movies and TV shows, and you just might enjoy superhero comics. But how about superhero novels? I'm giving away 2 free superhero novels and 1 free superhero short story. Visit percivalconstantine.com/SCP to get access to Vanguard, Heroes Forged, the first novel in my own Avengers and X-Men inspired superhero novel series, and Ronin Born, my cyberpunk superhero novel set in a futuristic Japan. I'm also throwing in Fire and Lightning, a free prequel story to my new Power Rangers-inspired superhero series, Omega Knights. So visit percivalconstantine.com/SCP, those are just the letters SCP, to get started, or click on the link in the show notes. And now, on with the show. There's some other interesting things that happened in here. Like, for one, I love So have you ever read the comic book, The Wrong Earth?
No, I have not.
So it's a great comic book by Tom Payer, and I think Jamal Igle did the art. But anyway, the whole concept of it is, imagine if like the more modern Batman, like, you know, from like Dark Knight style stuff, the Nolan films, all that, crossed over with the 66 Adam West Batman. That's kind of like the conceit of the comic book. It's not Batman, obviously, because this is an independent comic book. They don't have the rights for that, but it was like it was like a very similar type character who was called Dragonfly, I think was the character's name. And so you have like this, it's a fun comic, and it shows like all these differences, and it's kind of a love letter to both versions of Batman, and it's kind of showing like how the different versions don't really work together. Like there was one, like the more modern, edgier Dragonfly, he goes to the campy version's reality, and he asks, and he finds, and he's like asking, and his car's computer knows everything, and so he asks him, "Oh, where's the villain hiding?" And the computer just tells him exactly where the location is. And he's like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" Another one, the more campy one, he has like, you know, anti-bullet spray or something like that. So yes, so it's like showing it's having a lot of fun with melding these two different concepts, and I got a bit of that feel here with this. Like when the 87 Donatello was talking about how, oh well, all we need is this, you know, trans-dimensional transporter, and it could fit, and the 2003 one is like, I don't think you could just build that easily, and the 87 version is like, no, come on, I'll show you, it's really easy.
Yeah, I love the joke of when he's like, hand me that hammer over there, and he's like, this is a wrench.
Yeah, showing that he doesn't actually know how any of these tools work. It's just you know, 80s kids animation magic that just makes him do whatever he wants. He can just pull anything out. Or Bebop and Rocksteady, they have the scent analyzer, which was an actual thing from the 87 series with the nose on the end.
Which I don't remember if Bebop and Rocksteady were a part of the 2003 series or not.
I don't believe they were.
Like, I'm honestly surprised that the 2003 Shredder kept them on the ship and didn't just throw them out.
Well, that was kind of the conceit of the show. Like this was a thing with 80s cartoons in general. The villains were almost always incompetent.
Yeah.
So that was just, and they're almost always played for laughs. Like they were never really a threat. You know, you go to Skeletor in Masters of the Universe or Cobra Commander in G.I. Joe. They were always these shows back then. They were very binary, black and white, and they were basically just, the whole idea behind these shows was basically you were just trying to get kids to buy toys. Like that's basically what they were. They were 20-minute commercials essentially.
Yeah, it's still like that, but they put a little bit more effort into them.
It's not so much today. These days. There have been it's not so much like that these days, because there have been because of how much blatant consumerism was going on in the 80s. I think there were like some regulations or at least some parent outcry that caused like the animation industry to kind of pull back. And when you get to things like, even in the early 90s, when you got to things like, Batman the Animated Series or X-Men, there was a much more concerted effort to start taking the writing side of things a little bit more seriously. So you go back to the 80s cartoons, the writing is, as much as people might love them, the writing is not that good. It's just very much, we're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall and just seeing what kind of sticks. Yeah. But as you get on in the more modern stuff, you will see like there is a much more concerted effort to put some effort into the writing, and they're taking these concepts a lot more seriously. So yeah, there's a definite difference.
Reminds me of how I have watched for my podcast a few episodes of the 80s Hawk Show. Which is a Hawk Show that not many people I think have seen. A lot of people have seen the 90s one, but they haven't seen in the 80s one, I don't think. But you say like them throwing stuff at the wall feels very reminiscent of the first episode of that, as they don't even have him facing a Hulk villain in that. They have him facing Doc Ock from Spider-Man.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, I've never even heard of this 80s show, so this is the first I've even heard of that. Yeah, there was a few attempts in the 80s with like Marvel wasn't able to really quite hit the ball. They did have Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends was kind of a big thing, but I don't think any others really kind of hit the mark. You did have, there were attempts, like there was also the Pride of the X-Men pilot, which was never picked up. I see like, the 82 CV series.
Yeah, I feel like the only thing that was in much of the 80s with Marvel that was super popular outside of the comics was the live action Hulk show with Lou Ferrigno and Bill Bixby.
Yeah. Well, that was I believe that started in the 70s.
That's why I say a little bit. Yeah. That's why I say a little bit of the 80s, because I'm pretty sure it ended like very early 80s.
Yeah, there were some revival attempts at it. Like they had, I think, 3 direct-to-video movies, and there was a plan for another one that would have had, I think it was going to be called The Death of the Incredible Hulk, that would have had She-Hulk in it, and it would have served as like a finale. But I think that was when, if I'm not mistaken, it's either when Bill Bixby got sick or he had already died or something like that.
Yeah, sadly, he had passed away. Bill Bixby, actually, before any of those ones came out, he was actually working on himself. It never ended up getting made, but he was actually working on trying to make a film crossing over his Hulk with the Spider-Man and live action show from the 70s. And it's really interesting story because he sent this script to Lou Ferrigno. Lou Ferrigno wanted to do it. For some reason, the studio never wanted to make it or something. The studio I'm pretty sure tried to say that Lou Ferrigno turned it down, but Lou Ferrigno has said that he never received an official offer for it.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. Something vague about that. Might have been rights issues or something like that. I don't know. I'd have to look more into that. But I remember hearing something about that at the time, because they did have because they did have Daredevil and Thor in those TV movies, which was intended to be. I'm sorry, not the Death of the Incredible Hulk was the unproduced one. It was supposed to be called Revenge of the Incredible Hulk, which would have brought him back. Yeah. So then there were he did want to. I remember hearing something about wanting to do that. Maybe also would have involved the forgotten 77 Doctor Strange movie as well.
Which I think that would have been really cool to have that at mainly because I just love the love whenever Hulk and Spider-Man interact. I think they have a really good chemistry with each other.
Yeah, I'm not so sure how well that would have worked back at this time because that 70s Spider-Man show was not very good. Like the Hulk has its charms, but the Spider-Man one, it was famously known as even the one Marvel property that not even Stan Lee would defend. So yeah, I think there was you probably would not have worked so well then. Anyway, back to Turtles Forever. Some other things that I liked, I did enjoy the how the Turtles' reactions to their 87 counterparts, and especially how Mikey at first he gets completely taken with them, and because they're just as goofy as he is, and Raph even mentions at one point it's like having 5 Mikeys around. But then they get to a point where even Mike reaches his limits and he can't deal with them anymore.
Yeah, I love that. How he's just like how all of a sudden when they get to the universe, he's like Mikey. He says, "Can you guys not take anything seriously?"
But also like commenting on the fact that they have their initials all on their belts and everything, which I thought was a funny little nod to the differences in the designs. And we also see like how incompetent the villains they have to face are. Again, I mentioned before how the 87 turtles like, well, we have to save April at least once a day. And
which I don't love the idea of damsel in distress, but I kind of like that. I feel like they were kind of using this to call out how the 80s series did that.
I think they definitely were, yeah. Especially because you look at the April in the 2003 series and another stuff since, she's much more competent than she was in the 87 series, where she was basically exactly like that, where she pulls out her camera out of nowhere to start filming stuff. And
were the like one-off villains in the 87 series actually like as simple as it's a living banana, it's bowling balls?
I don't know if I can't remember that, but they did have like these pizza creatures, like I can't remember what they were called, but they were like these little they were like these, it was like some sort of like mutant pizza type thing that it evolved in like these almost like xenomorph type creatures. So you definitely did have something of that.
Makes sense.
And yeah, when you had mentioned Bebop and Rocksteady before, and as my understanding of the 2003 series is that either Eastman or Laird, one of them was very heavily involved in the production of that. And Eastman and Laird, they famously hated Bebop and Rocksteady. So when that's why in Secret of the Ooze you had Toka and Razor, because originally the studio was pushing for Bebop and Rocksteady, but Eastman and Laird pushed back and they said, we are not putting Bebop and Rocksteady in this, and so then they got Toka and Razor instead in that. So that was something, and obviously by the time they got to the 2012 series, I think they had mellowed out a bit, and also in the IDW series you have Bebop and Rocksteady in that, but they're much more serious characters. They're not as jokey as they are in the original.
The 2012 series, you said you've seen a little bit of that. Did you see how they kind of just repeated this crossover in at some point during that show?
I have recently heard that they had done that, but I have never seen that. I have not gotten that far yet, so I haven't seen that one yet.
And I like a part of me he likes it because I think it's cool to keep having the turtles, the new turtles get to meet the older turtles, but another part of me is like, it was only a few years after Turtles Forever, so I'm like, I feel like they didn't need to have a crossover that quickly again, like just like this.
Mhm. Yeah, I haven't watched it, so I mean
Mhm.
there was, in fact, when someone had mentioned that, I think on Blue Sky or somewhere else, I had said like, oh no, they crossed off with the 2003, and then like no, they also crossed off with the 2012. So I hadn't realized it was that close in time, but you know, and this
Like
was
I
actually
kind of
originally. Sorry, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, I kind of wonder if we're ever going to get to a point where Seth Rogen's new version of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles does their own version of a crossover like this.
Um, I don't think that's probably not as likely, just because this was very much kind of a niche thing, and it was done in
Mhm.
the context of a much larger project. So like the 2003 series, this was kind of like the finale to that series. In the 2012, it's just, it's part of the whole series. Whereas the next Mutant Mayhem is very much its own thing,
Yeah.
and I don't see, and it's not so much
Yeah.
rooted in nostalgia as some of these other Turtles
And
projects are. So I don't
also
see that
it's
really happening.
like I think that it's time where I could see the studio trying to get him to do it just because multiverse full films are popular right now, but he would probably refuse. It was just because it's not because he's more interested in just telling stories,
Mhm.
but also because it really would not make a lot of sense, mainly because of the fact that how do you cross over sign that's 3D animation with sign that's 2D animation?
Well, I don't know. How do they do it in the 2012 series? Because that was 3D animation as
That's a
well.
good question. I don't remember.
Okay. See, I mean, I think they can do it. I think I've seen things where they did have 3D and 2D animation crossed over, so it's possible they could find a way to do it. Um, I mean, if they can do 2D animation crossing over with live action, I don't see why they couldn't do different
Makes
animation
sense. Yeah.
styles. So I think they could do that. Um, but yeah, I don't see that happening, just because it doesn't seem like the kind of thing that's really well suited to what they're doing in
Makes
the Mutant
sense.
Mayhem universe. I mean, it could happen. They do have that Tales of the TMNT spinoff, so if
Yeah.
that continues going on, it's
Which
probable that you could do something like
I
that in
have
there.
not I have not had a chance to watch that Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series. I, I'm interested in seeing it, but I find it so weird how it came out, and I feel like there was absolutely no marketing for that at all.
Yeah,
I
I
did
mean,
not see anybody talking about it.
yeah, I'd only found out about it fairly recently myself. I'm not in America, so I never noticed what's going on with marketing anyway. So that stuff
Mhm.
doesn't matter to me. But anyway, some of the things I wanted to mention here. Well, one thing I liked was the different cameos they had from the other Turtles properties, so we get to see a lot of
Yeah.
different stuff in there. Um, Interestingly enough, the only thing that doesn't seem to get spotlighted at all is the Next Mutation, which was the live action TV show from the late 90s and
Mhm.
mid late 90s, something like that. And probably because it was really bad. It was terrible.
Which if it was so bad, I'm surprised it got wasn't it like 3 seasons or something? Like I'm surprised it
Um,
got so much of the show.
I mean, I'm not sure what the deal is behind the scenes, but no, it was only one season. It was canceled after
Oh, I
26
thought it was like
episodes.
okay. Never mind then.
And I'm pretty sure Eastman and Laird hated it. Like,
Okay.
they had introduced the fifth female turtle, Venus de Milo, and um, they apparently Peter Laird is the one who said he hated Venus and actually had her profile removed from the official site for a time being. So
Interesting.
so that show
The
was not very
only
popular at all.
the only thing with that show that I have any interest in is the fact that there's a Power Rangers crossover. Like
Yeah,
that,
because it
like
was
I think that's a really fun idea, crossing over Turtles and Power Rangers.
yeah, because they were both this was when Saban had done the Power Rangers TV show, and they also did Next Mutation, so that's why they crossed those over. I think there was also a crossover, or maybe I'm mixing it up, but there may have been a proposed crossover with So I'm looking here. It says that the ratings weren't strong enough for Fox to continue, and since Fox didn't own the Turtles, they didn't profit from it airing. And so there's a rumor that it was Power Rangers. It was because of Power Rangers that it was canceled, just because they didn't want the competition or something like that. I'm not sure exactly how that all works out, though. But yeah, it was just not a very good series, so I can understand why they didn't want to have that spotlighted in the other stuff. They did have spotlights from other stuff, like they did obviously have the live action movies in there. The 2007 animated film, which I loved. I thought that one was pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say. The only other thing too I wanted to mention is that I did think it was funny that they were complaining about things like the turtle vehicles, that the 2003 series, and this is kind of the way of, I think, the 2003 series poking fun at itself, because it did also have their own version of the turtle van. They did also have their own version of like some pretty sophisticated technology for what the Turtles setup is. So they do poke fun at stuff a little bit here and there.
Now, one last thing that I think is really cool, since this was this celebration and of everything with the Turtles, was the ending scene in showing the comic writers like writing the comic. Like, I thought that was really cool. And it makes me wonder, was that actually their voices, or did they just have people acting as if they were them?
No, that was actually Eastman and Laird. They were doing
That's
the
cool.
voices for that. Yeah. And yeah, stuff like we'll also do like the pizza toppings. If you caught that, when the 87 Turtles, they go into the pizza parlor, that was something they did in the original one too. They were asking for all these weird. They always asked for these really weird toppings on their pizzas.
The only thing I think that would have made that scene better is if they referenced the no anchovies.
No, that was that was from the, but I think they did ask for anchovies in the original series as well. So I think that was, I think when they did that, I think in the 90, the live action movie, I think the reason they did that was to poke fun at the 87 series. I'm not sure, that might just be pushing things too far.
I know I had this like storybook as a kid that was just about the Ninja Turtles going to get pizza, and and the big thing I remember about it is just they repeatedly say no anchovies. They want to make sure that the place knows you cannot put anchovies on our pizza.
Also, too, I like the fact that the surprise that the 87 Turtles have when the 2003 ones referred to Splinter as father. So I thought that was also a nice little touch, because that wasn't a relationship. They didn't have that same kind of relationship in the 87 series with Splinter. They always just called him Master Splinter. But when you look at the 2003 series, it really harkened back to the comics in a lot of ways. From obvious things like, he had Casey Jones involved much more closely with the Turtles, and he's not a sociopath like he is in the 87 series. You had stuff like April being a scientist instead of being a TV news reporter. And the Shredder, you have the Utrom, and you had a lot more of the sci-fi stuff, which was very much a big part of the Mirage series. But also you had things like, they definitely had this kind of like father-son relationship between Splinter and the Turtles, whereas in the 87 series, they didn't really have that same kind of connection.
Now, speaking of a father or so relationship, we also have the Utron on Shredder's daughter in this. It's something I think would have been really interesting. Would have been if they tried to like explore a little bit more of the 87 Shredder being surprised and eyes about the fact that a version of him has a daughter, and not just having a very generalized joke of they don't have much family resemblance. I think it could have been fun, like maybe he's trying to act like a father figure towards her, even though he's not actually her father. Or I think that could be an interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that would work with the characterization of him, though, because of the whole idea of the 87 Shredder just being this kind of like maniacal doofus. So who doesn't really ever seem to like anything. So I'm not sure if they could have really made that work in the time they had.
Makes sense.
Anyway, any other things you wanted to mention about this series or the show?
I don't think so.
Yeah, that pretty much exhausts everything I had to say. Like I said, this is a short movie. It's just like an hour and change, so we don't have as long of an episode as usual as a result. But so if you're thinking about the movies here, you know, where would you kind of put this in the rankings of the films overall, do you think?
Of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle films,
yeah.
That's I feel like that would be that's a really hard question for me because like the vast majority of them I have not seen since I was a little kid, so I can so I don't know if I would be able to say. Like, I think it is I loved this. I feel like I like better the live action 90s film and the mayhem but I feel like I could say that I could happily put it as number 3 with those being the ones above it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for me, like I realized this. I was just re-listening to the episode we did on Mutant Mayhem, and like the 1990 film is still the best of the bunch for me. And I would put the 2007 animated film after that, and then third place. I was going back and forth last time between Secret of the Ooze and Mutant Mayhem as the third because Secret of the Ooze is more akin to the Turtles' personalities that I know that I like. It's more like the kind of classic Turtles, whereas Mutant Mayhem is a better overall movie. But I think I think this Turtles Forever, I think I would probably put this in third place as well because I think it is better than the story's not necessarily better than Mutant Mayhem, but the characters are more true to what I think of as the Turtles. And I always had a soft spot. I've always said the 2003 is definitely like one of the best, you know, animated versions we've gotten of these Turtles. Yeah. So, and it's like probably the closest we've gotten to the comics of all of them.
One I think it's just a little bit of a funny story. When I was a kid, my family had VHS copies of both the first 90s film and the third one. We didn't have the second one, so for a long time until I looked it up, I thought they just skipped over number 2 and just for some reason decided to call their second film Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3.
Oh man, if there was one movie that original trilogy that is better skipped over, it is definitely the third one. So I feel sorry for you growing up with that then.
No, it's like and I'm pretty sure I asked my parents about it once, and they were like, "I don't know why. I don't know why they didn't make a second film." I'm like, and now growing as an adult, I'm like, that's so weird that we had the first film and the third film, but not the second film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. Anyway, John, thanks so much for coming on, and why don't you tell people where they can find you?
You can find me on basically all social medias by searching Smash Trivia. As I said earlier, I'll be the one with the green head profile picture. Or you can listen to my podcast, Smash Represents the Gamma Analysis. You can and watch videos from me on TikTok and YouTube. Yeah, that's about everything.
Okay, great. And as for us, superherocinephiles.com is the website, and we are Super Cinema Pod on Blue Sky, also technically on Instagram and Threads, but we just post release announcements there. Also Superhero Cinephiles on Facebook, basically just for release announcements. But if you want to connect with me, Blue Sky is definitely the place to go. And as always, if you're interested in becoming a guest yourself, you can find out more information at the website. And please also check out the links in the show notes for information about to help support the show through the advertising. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you later. Thanks for listening to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. Superhero Cinephiles is produced by me, Percival Constantine. The show is created by myself and the late, great Derek Ferguson, our host emeritus. Visit us on the web at superherocinephiles.com to listen to past episodes or find out how you can be a guest yourself. Support the show by visiting our advertiser links or click the Buy Me a Coffee link on the website to make a one-time donation. We are Super Cinema Pod on both Instagram and Blue Sky, so please be sure to follow us. We'd also appreciate if you could rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and share us with your friends.
Thank you for listening. And as always, good night, good evening. God bless.